Welcome to On the Nerdy Side with Honey and Stinky. I'm Honey.
I'm Spanky.
Today we're going to be talking about how college is a scam.
Yeah. Today we're getting down to serious business. And we just to be clear, we are not ripping on college students.
No.
We're not ripping on professors.
No.
We don't love the administrators, and we certainly don't love the financial industry around college. We're not people who have never been to college and are just saying, oh, it's just woke mind virus. Oh, it's just for socialism. Oh, it's just to train commies. Because if you've actually been to college and we went to different colleges, that's bullshit. This is just some nonsense talking points. What we're actually talking about is the negative effects financially of going to college. Does that sound about right, honey?
Yes. That we were sold a kind of bait and switch on what to expect, what our investment was going to return
Yes.
to our lives, the return on investment that we never saw. And just to be, I want to echo what Spanky was saying about, I don't want to shit on learning.
Yes.
I think learning is absolutely essential to keep doing throughout your life. I read all the time still. I am constantly buying books,
Right.
like I'm a librarian or something, especially for our kids. I am a huge fan of always expanding what I know, because then I can feel more secure in my understanding of things, is how I approach it.
Right.
And I also want to say there were some things I super loved about college. I loved the idea of college. It's just the reality of it never lived up to what we were promised. And I did walk in, or before I get there, I want to say this is completely based off of my personal experience and the anecdotes and the knowledge that I have from friends and acquaintances whom have shared their college experiences with me, right? I also recognize that there are some people who are going into certain professions or certain majors for whom college is essential and real. I'm not claiming to have any kind of diaspora, all the kinds of experiences experience. But I do think it's important to share our experience, because unfortunately it's kind of the more common one.
Right. We're not saying, like, again, that there is no merit to going to college or going to school. But we think that we were part of an industrial complex that misleads high school students, misleads them about the financial reality. And quite frankly, all of these universities are fucking guilty of not being honest about what the majority of a graduate, whether you're graduating with a bachelor's and sometimes even with a master's, what the realities of the job market is afterwards. They didn't adequately prepare us, and they really weren't honest that certain colleges, especially the big ones, are really just finishing schools for the wealthy kids who don't have to really goddamn worry about being under any kind of financial stress coming out. And we're going to get into all that, of course, but I did want to go out of my way to explain the difference between someone going to school like me, who didn't, when I went to college, I went to a state school, and I went in there not having to worry about how college was being paid for, because my family was paying for it. But Honey's family was not paying for it, and she had the extra stress of having to go to school knowing, holy shit, I'm going to have to pay for this later. And your experience, I believe, in college is dictated by that fact.
Yeah, I mean, I was a first generation college student, and for me, I thought of it as my quote unquote ticket to escape the crushing poverty that I was experiencing. And I thought that I would be able to leverage my intellectual capabilities and my creativity into some sort of career trajectory that was going to help me I thought that I was going to have an experience that was going to help me rise to my level of capability. You know, the meritocracy
Yeah,
myth that we were all sold back in the 90s and the aughts
right,
of, you'll rise to the level of your ability. And it was like that never happened. In fact, I was absolutely cemented down to the floor by the chosen career path that I made. And it really felt like it was a punishment by the older people who had neither needed to nor elected to go to college.
right. So this is going to be on the nerdy side, but sort of on the angry nerdy side, because we're not going to be able to contain our irritation on this one guy. We're going to, of course, try to make it fun as we usually do. But I mean, I think for a lot of us, especially those of us born after like 1975, and I'm not trying to age us, but we're just generally saying that
We're after that.
yes, we're not that old, but we have noticed a pattern of people, whether it's the younger Xers, the Generation Y, the lost generation, the millennials across the board, and now the Zers are starting to find out that like we are part of this industrial complex where we're pushed to think that we have to go to college. And then we're also told, especially around our age group, we were basically told, oh, don't worry about the money. The money's there. We were told that over and over again.
Mhm.
And then you get out and it's bullshit. And oh, by the way, we were all encouraged to get degrees that when we got out of college
We're
really were
useless.
not fucking helpful.
Totally
And
useless. Just vanity degree.
right. And as Honey has brought up, I have a film degree, but that's not the industry I went into. I worked at Bizanx, the banking industry, which was I did because I could actually like have like a career that paid me, and I had benefits and a 401k, but like that's not what I went to school. And then also when I was going to school, I really barely touched a camera. I mean, a lot of the stuff I was doing was the typical liberal arts things, all sorts of weird classes that had nothing to do with filmmaking. A lot of horse shit, I think. But I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say I didn't make great friends. I didn't have great professors, and I didn't get things out of it. I got some practical skills when it came to writing and research, and I love reading, and I loved reading even more after I got out of college. But I mean, when graduating with a film degree and going right into banking was not my plan. That was not what I was told was going to happen. But yeah. So, Honey, is going to take the lead on this episode. So, she has organized things as usual. And so, we're going to break this down to specific topics that we'll try to get to by the end of the episode. Um, and did you have anything else to add to what I was saying that would transition to what your topics were?
Well, I think that one of the biggest ones is to maybe start at the beginning
Yeah,
of how we were groomed to expect that college was our destiny.
right.
We
Yeah.
were groomed by a united front of bad faith, I believe, between our parents who had some sort of keeping up with the Joneses attitude of like, I know someone who went to college and they became a millionaire and I want you to be a millionaire so you'll buy me a house and support me in retirement, is what I think that basically was from the parent side of the grooming on why we needed to go to college. And it was sort of like a foregone conclusion that you're either going to go to college or you're going to like become a prostitute in the alley of some city somewhere, right?
Yes. We cannot dance around the generational aspect of going to college because, our parents were baby boomers, and one of the not great cruel stereotypes of the boomers is they love to keep up with the Joneses and they love to compete with each other. And they did. The 80s was a dog eat dog economic time, so you can forgive them for some aspects, but a lot of them, they wanted their children to go to college because they can go, oh, well, my daughter went to USC, or my daughter got into Harvard, or my son is a baseball player at so and so. Right?
You know, I understand how you want to be like a TV talk show host and all, like Conan O'Brien. But did you know that even he went to college?
He did?
Yeah. He went to Harvard.
And it became more about what they wanted and less about what was good for us.
Yes.
And for some people, we know this. School is not for everybody. High school kind of isn't for everybody. And university certainly isn't for everybody. And a lot of people were pushed into it. I mean, I remember when I was in the dorms, and by the second quarter, half the kids that were on my floor didn't make it through the semester. It really fleshed a lot of people out. And, I went to a state college in California, were considered the easier colleges, right? And like, I'm not going to lie, my school was almost like a glorified community college, and I saw a lot of people come and go, because it's not easy. You have to have, if you're working full time, going to college is almost impossible, you know?
And I did that for graduate school.
Right.
And it was almost impossible. It was super duper hard. Turns out, I went to several colleges.
Yeah.
I went to literally 2 different community colleges. I had to leave the first one because a convicted killer who had escaped jail and then gone on to kill some other people had been bullying me, and I had to no longer attend
I
that
didn't know
school.
that.
So that, yeah, I told you just forgot. It's like a long drawn out story that I don't want to get into.
Okay.
But it was, yeah. And when I went to the campus security, and I'm like, hi, so I was watching the evening news last night, and I found my bully you said you couldn't do anything about. It turns out he has escaped prison. And I was like, okay, so then I don't think I can be here because I'd like to not die at 18.
Right.
So, and then I went to a different community college. I think that there is a possibility that they maybe some places had some good intentions, had some good faith at some point.
Right.
But then when I went to undergrad after community college, and I did that because I was first generation trying to save money. I had like great grades. That wasn't my issue in high school. I could have slid right into anywhere. I could have slid right in to any of the Ivies and probably a lot of the international ones. I was an exceptional student. I did a bunch of stuff in high school I don't want to talk about right now. But But I just want to say, it's not like I'm embittered because I didn't do well. It's not like I'm embittered because my grades were poor. I am feeling salty about the experience, turns out, for most of my life, because I was fucking lied to about what I was going to earn as a result of my efforts. And I did, in good faith and in actual delivery, put out all of my effort and consistently helped not just like me achieve good grades, but of course I was always wrangled into, often assigned group assignments by the professors to basically carry other people's grades.
Well, and before we get into the actual college thing, because I want to talk about this. This is important. The high school portion of this is partly what I want to talk about because they're part of the scams.
Yes.
We know that a lot of schools get their funding based on how many kids get into college. And this was the real reason, I believe, why so many of us were pushed. They always made a big deal at my high school of they put the names and the colleges of who got in because they got funding based on that. And the teachers and the guidance counselors and the principals, as well as the parents, all kind of sold us on this idea that the magic beans will be received when you graduate from college, when really you're just benefiting the high school. Now, what kind of things do you remember your teachers were telling you?
I remember that the teachers in high school were basically telling us all that we needed to either think about basically asking, would you like fries with that?
Right.
Would you like to supersize that? Or would you like to go to college?
It was literally
those choices.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in an exceptionally low income neighborhood in Northeast Los Angeles. And there were a lot of people of color who were in my community. And quite frankly, considering like how aggressive they were about you have to go to college, you have to go to college, you have to go to college, I feel like that was more predatory. Particularly considering that, by the way, almost everyone I know did go to college, but they didn't all finish. And a lot of the people who did finish, who who worked hard to get their degrees. I think of my one friend. I'm not going to say his last name, but
We might have to
he.
blank that out later completely.
Okay, I'm going to think of my one friend from high school that I stayed in touch with, who was an intelligent and quite capable young man, and he went to UCLA. He studied engineering. He graduated in the top something percentage of his class. He could not find a job in engineering to save his life. We stayed in touch for about a year and a half. After he had graduated, he actually wound up returning to his home country because it was useless here. Even though it shouldn't have been, he was a great student. He was not a drug addict. He didn't have any vices that I was aware of other than maybe some, questionable fashion choices. He was a good man who could have contributed positively, and we lost a possible Einstein when he had to literally leave the country.
Glass ceiling.
Well, he never even got through, and he did the work, So that's just one of many examples that I have. But one of the things that I was hoping to talk about, to piggyback off of your, let's go back to high school and think about it, with how the high school experience was really structured to place us all into college. Well, that also robbed us of our chance to like be a high schooler. I was so busy like focusing on papers and achievements and those extracurriculars that we had to do, or you're not going to stand a chance to compete against the other applicants, right?
Yeah.
That like there could have been way more just, oh, yay, I get to be a high school senior. No, I didn't really get to do that.
Right. And I got it. So that's interesting because, like, what was the other thing that we both talk about is how both Honey and I were sort of suspicious that we were being hustled.
Oh, yeah.
And I got to say that for most of high school, I didn't think I was cut out for college. I never really had an easy time academically. I became a decent writer by the end of college, but like math and science, oh my God, I was always struggling with that. If history, I was pretty good at. English, I was pretty good at. But if I didn't have music, I wouldn't have gotten through high school. That was propping up my 3 A's were propping up my GPA in music because I was in 3 music classes. But like, I didn't really have this because I just assumed I wasn't going to go. And I ended up going to a state school. But like, I remember like, I didn't want to take the SATs and they made us do pre-SATs and I refused to take it my junior year and I was basically ostracized for it. And they basically, my teacher basically, you'll be flipping burgers if you don't take this SAT test, blah, 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 right?
Their favorite threat.
And it was like, and you kind of, looking back, it is kind of racist because like, they were basically like, well, then you'll be stuck working with the colored people. And it's like, oh, fuck you, man. Like, first of all, I am colored. And second of all, like, I think some people who I know people who actually were successful not going to college and learning a trade out of high school, becoming plumbers, becoming carpenters. I have friends who got a college degree and went into a trade and made way more money than they'd ever would have, as a psych major normally.
My dad was a contractor, and I feel very confident had I just literally paid more attention and become a contractor, I would have made more money.